What's up, everyone? This is my favorite book. It's called Not Fade Away, A Short Life Well Lived. This is the top book I recommend to all my friends. And today I'm going to take you through all my notes about it so that if you don't have the time to read it, you can learn from things. I mean, this genuinely really changed my life. And if you do read it or if you get through this video, you'll truly see all the ways in which it changed my life. So let's get into it. The book's title is A Short Life Well Lived because this man is Peter Barton. Peter Barton was a very successful media executive. He's worth about $200 million, but that isn't what he wanted to be known for. He wanted to be known for building things. He took risks. He lived and loved hard. He coached the kids. And I'm going to be reading off my computer, so don't judge me. But he said, "Death comes in one size only. The same cannot be said of lives. Some people live larger than others, and the surest way to gauge the size of your life is by the number of lives you touched." By that count, Peter had lived large. You could just tell that he was the type of person that you wanted to have in your life, and the people that were lucky enough to be in his benefited so massively from it. What I really learned from is that Peter just chugged from the glass of life. He had this great line about how he drove the corporate pilots crazy. He was a very successful media executive in the telecom space. He worked with John Malone building Liberty Media. So all the TV channels that we saw growing up, he was an executive building that. And he talked about how he drove his corporate pilots crazy because every night. Hey everyone, this is my favorite book, Not Fade Away. It's the number one book I recommend to friends, and I'm going to take you through my notes today because I think everyone should read this book. So if you don't have the time to read it, you'll get the gist for it after this video. So the book is about Peter Barton. That's him right there. And at the age of 40, Peter was diagnosed with terminal cancer. In his dying few months, he took the time to write a book about how actually to live. And so the book is a celebration about life from someone who did it right. Peter was a very successful media executive. He was worth about $200 million at his passing, but that isn't what he would be known for. He was known for the way he lived life. He took risks. He built things. He lived and he loved hard. He coached the kids' little league teams. And the book is written in combination with Peter, and it's a lesson about how to actually live life. The overarching theme is that most people aren't even in their lives. They're just on autopilot. And this is the book that taught me how to become alive. Because the book says, and I'm going to be reading off my notes, he says, "Death comes in one size only. The same cannot be said of lives. Some people live larger lives than others, and the surest way to gauge the size of one's life is by the number of lives that they touched." And in that sense, Peter had lived large. He was the kind of person you wanted to have in your life, and you could just feel how special he made life for the people that were lucky enough to be in his. Unfortunately, his life was cut short, but you knew that he made the most out of life. It taught me this phrase that I've come to love of chugging from the glass of life or sucking life like it's an oyster. And so this book is really a lesson in how to live well. I'll get you started with one of my favorite quotes. I have many, but this one always stuck with me. Peter said, "This is who I am, and it's too late to start apologizing." And that was a quote that was really pivotal for me. It helped me not only embrace the essence of who I am, but to own it, to be proud of it, to broadcast it. You know, the opposite of apologizing for it, to proudly show off who I am and who I'm trying to be. And so these are the rest of my notes. I really hope that it changes your life the way it does. And when you get through it, let me know which quotes are your favorite and which ones had the biggest impact on you. So I'm going to take you through a couple of key themes. So obviously, the book is written as he's dying, but it's about life. It's a celebration of life. But there is no death without life. And as he says, we all spend so much time planning for the future. But death is a stark reality that someday there will be no future. Nothing is a bigger wake-up call to start enjoying the present. And this is something that I've carried with me today. Every day, I remind myself that I am going to die. Because when you put it that way, everything falls into perspective. Why wouldn't you take that risk? Why wouldn't you start that company or text that person? But the same way, why wouldn't you be here in this moment? You could die tomorrow. Express love, live with your heart and your hair on fire. And what was really interesting is obviously the challenge is we all are planning in the future. And Peter was a very successful business executive. He did a lot of the same work that I did in finance. In finance, you're always building these financial models 5 years into the future. And he made this idea, take today, it's 2026. Our financial models go into 2031. And so you're almost living more in 2031 than you are today. And Peter described this feeling of that he would time travel from the future back to the present moment, which isn't a good thing. He was like, it felt like I wasn't even in the present moment. And so I would ask you, you're so focused on where you want to get the next 5 years that are you even here right now? And Peter goes on to say, life does end. How many people truly grasp that simple fact before it's thrust into your faces? There's nothing more humbling than an awareness of death. Death is an opponent that every single one of us will lose to. I like to think of it as at some point we are going to take our final breaths. You're going to realize there's less time on the clock than you think. And ultimately, this will have been our life. And something that I think a lot about is really being happy in this moment. I love this idea of be here now. Because again, we all spend so much time worrying about the future, but we don't take that much time to appreciate how good we already have it right now. And death does that to people because when people die, all you're left with is the memories that you had. Those are the memories you're making right now. He says a big theme that I took away is embrace the idea of death because death is the biggest motor to live. Live today. Live fully today. Life is finite. We all know that. And yet we conveniently forget about it almost every hour of almost every day. When was the last time you truly reminded yourself that you're going to die? You're going to die. What's there to lose? Why can't you be happier? Something I always think about. Anytime you drive past a funeral home, think about they took their last breath. Their clock ran out. Think about all the time that was wasted. Sad, unhappy, stressed, worried, anxious. You never get that time back. So just don't do it. And then there's another idea that's really made me live super passionately. There's going to be a last time you do something, whether you're on your deathbed or not. There's a last time that you played outside with your friends. There's a last time you had a sleepover. There's a last time you kissed someone or hugged them goodbye. And we don't know how many lasts are happening all around our lives, even today. And understanding that there's a last time for everything makes everything mean so much more, because how much more would this moment mean to you if you knew it was the last time you got to do it? If it was the last time you got to see that person? You never know. So a big idea that really changed my life is to plan for your death and work backwards. Again, I'll say that quote that I loved. Death comes in one size only. The same cannot be said of lives. There are smaller and there are larger lives, and the surest gauge of the scale of a life is how many other lives it touches. By this standard, Peter had lived big. And they described the scene of his funeral. It was major. He lived in Denver. It was major news in Denver. It was an outpouring of love from all the people he worked with, all the kids' Little League teams he coached, all the people in the community. It's making me choke up. But we all plan so much for the future. So if you're going to do that, the best way is to plan for your death. That's obviously going to come in the future and work backwards. I am someone who wants a large funeral. In San Diego, where I'm from, we do these paddle outs. It's in surf culture. And I would love to have a big paddle out. Not because I want to be popular or it to be a big deal, but because I wanted to have touched a lot of lives. I wanted to be someone worthy of a lot of people showing up and paying their respects for it because I knew I would have impacted their life. And so that's what I like to do. Plan for your death and work backwards. Think about how you want to have left. Think about the impact you want it to have. Think about the stories that you want people to tell, and think about the life that you want to live. and then work backwards from it. Be the person that's deserving of that outpouring of love. Be the reason people are crying but laughing at the same time as they're telling all these amazing stories about the life that they had with you, and the memories that you guys shared and the love. Think about what will they say at your funeral? If they're talking about how much money you had, you didn't have the right things to talk about in your life. Then there's this beautiful idea of not rushing through life. Remember how I said Peter was a very, very successful executive. He was worth over $200 million. He crushed it. That was back then too, so that's a lot of money. But he made an interesting comment. He said, people of our generation seem to agree it was more important to live fully than to live in a straight line. But that art of living is lost. It's gotten so bad that kids aren't even going to college because they're so focused on making money today. I remember I was talking with an 18-year-old. He's like, yeah, I didn't go to college because it's not going to teach me how to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, no shit. That's not what college is about. And life now is you're taught to go on this path, the straight line path to success. But that's not where life is sustained. This other idea about being in a rush that he talked about, and I think is very important as you think about worrying and being anxious, is what if the cancer came from the pressure and stress that he put on himself? What if you right now are stressing so much about your life, and that's ultimately going to lead to what causes your cancer down the line? Might you take it a little easier on yourself? But related to this theme, he talked about taking the time to find yourself. Again, to live life fully instead of just in a straight line. He was a big proponent about not being in a rush and slowly going through life. Thank God he did that, right? He probably planned to live to be in his 80s and he only got 40 years. So it's a good thing he savored every moment. But he was not in a hurry to grow up. He took his time to enjoy his youth, to wander, to explore, to try things, to find himself, and to live. And eventually, this is the best part. He said eventually he felt ready to grow up and mature. At that point, he became very focused on his career, and he was very successful to the tune of a $200 million net worth. But these are the quotes that he said. There's 3. 1, what's unworthy about working to understand who you truly are and what you really want from life? What better use of time can a person make of his youth? That's question 1. I think you can imagine how that impacted me. I quit private equity without anything lined up just to wander and explore because I decided that I was my most important project. Figuring out who I wanted to be and what you really want from life, as Peter said, became my full-time job. And I'm so glad that I did that because I think a lot of people never do take that time. So you're like an airplane that's taken off with no destination in mind because you've never set the course for your life. And no wonder why people are so lost. Taking a step back to set a goal for yourself and a vision for your life allows you to take steps towards it. If you don't know where you're going, how can you get somewhere? There's this great quote that without a goal, it's hard to score. So what's that goal that you're going to set for yourself? Take time to find it. It's very fun too. So then he went on to say, I always knew that there would be a career and a track. But in the meantime, there was a lot of excellent detours that made for a fun life. Remember, you are living a life. You aren't living a straight life. You aren't a career. That's all a piece of your life. But you are living a life. You are writing the story of your life. What's the fun of it? Imagine a movie where you just wake up, go to work, come home, work out, eat chicken and broccoli. Not a very good story, right? Then he goes off to say, while I was busy goofing off, something mysterious and amazing was happening. Gradually, on my own schedule and no one else's, I was becoming ready. Ready to be a responsible adult, ready to be a husband, ready to be a father, ready for a successful career. And I feel that. I can't wait for all these things. But at the same time, there's a very important thing. I can't wait to be a father, but at the minute that you have a kid, you're now a father for the rest of your life. And you have to be ready because if you have it at the wrong time and you're still trying to balance everything else, well, you're not going to be as present as you need to be for your kids. And you're raising your kids, you don't have that many years, right? They get their car when they're 16. That means you have 16 years to truly shape them and mold them and be a good parent. But then he goes on to say, and this is really important. This is something that always stuck out to me. He said, what's funny is it all worked out exactly on the schedule I had planned in my head. I had all of those things, the success, the career, the family, the marriage, and the kids, all by the time I was 40, just as I had wanted it to go. It all happened exactly on the timeline it should. And as I've gone through my own experiences, I'm a serious believer in divine timing. We're all in a rush for things, of course. I want to be successful. I want to find love. I want to start a family. You want to know what your future is going to be like, but you can't control it because maybe you aren't ready. You know, the minute that all happens, you can never go back in life. The minute you create a $1 billion company, you're now the CEO of a $1 billion company. You now have investors up your ass, HR to manage, employees to manage and motivate and excite. The same way, you know, I think a lot of us worry about finding love. Of course I want to find love. We all want to find love. But there's this great song, Single Saturday Night by Cole Swindell. It's a country song. And it's like this song that there's going to be a last single Saturday night. There's going to be a last time you go on a first date with someone, which is great, as it should be. But at some point too, you might look back and be like, yeah, you know, my single era was fun. It was fun meeting people and going on dates. It was fun going out with the boys on a Saturday night. So just something to think about. And then when he talked about this goofing off, finding himself time, not being in a rush, he would spend his winter skiing and his summers by the lake. And he said and he was living out of this green truck, like a Sprinter van. He said, the time I spent in the green truck was the closest I'd come to living entirely in the present. I didn't plan. I didn't worry. I had no particular destination in mind beyond the place that I'd parked that night. I lived with the intensity of here. I enjoyed the excitement and serenity of now. And I just wonder, have you ever lived like that? Have you ever lived entirely in the present moment? Or did you get a job when you were 22 right out of college and now you have to go ask your boss for permission to go on vacation? Imagine that freedom. You know, I felt this when I quit private equity at 25 with nothing lined up. I went to New York for 6 weeks. Every day, you got to do what you wanted to do. You were entirely free. And it's important that you understand what it means to be truly free because you can feel when your freedom is warped. And it's important that you give yourself that experience to wander and to do what you want and to honestly just follow your own intuition. That's how you train your gut. That's ultimately how you learn to live. And that's ultimately how you find your purpose. You have to pull your head out of your ass sometimes and live from time to time to figure out where you're trying to go. So then there's some really amazing things about careers, wealth, and success. Obviously, he was an amazing person to listen to, very successful executive and built a $200 million net worth. And career success for him was defined as building an enterprise that he had a hand in building. He wanted his neck on the line and to build something, to take risks. And in my opinion, you have to do that to be successful in life. You can be successful and just make money with a boring life. You have to live a full life. That is by building something. So what were his secrets to success? He said, I worked my ass off. He also added, I faked confidence when I didn't truly feel it. And that I had to overcome at every stage with my own insecurities and my feel of failure. I had to suck up fear over and over again, and I failed over and over again. This, by the way, is a trait that I seem to share with many of the most successful people I have met. Faking confidence when you don't feel it, overcoming your own fears and insecurities, and overcoming failure. So then he is a massive proponent of don't take the safe path. Now, again, amazing that I found this. Actually, shout out to Pat Sullivan when I was staying at his apartment in New York, again, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So he said, don't take the safe path. It's a sweeping generalization, but more and more I see people who aren't excited about their career, the actual work they do. They're only in it for the rewards. They don't want to create. They don't want to take chances. They just want the safe track that offers money and prestige. They will gladly settle for a bland, predictable success. Bottom line, they were extremely bright people who would never actually do anything, would never add much to society, and would leave no legacy behind. I found this terribly sad. Wasted potential is always sad. Does that remind you of anyone's career? or career decisions. Now, this is my favorite part. He goes, if I crashed and burned, so be it. But there had to be some big dream worth pursuing. And there had to be joy and excitement in the challenge of pursuing it. If joy and excitement isn't present in your job right now, it will not show up. And so, as you can see, this profoundly changed my career path. I left private equity. I left the brand predictable success. I knew it wasn't making me happy. And so I set out to crash and burn. I set out to pursue some big dream that no one else understands, but something that lights me up and gives me joy and excitement. We'll see how I do. But I realized something about success in this process. The simple fact that you are willing to crash and burn, that you take the leap, is the biggest predictor of success, because I firmly believe life does not begin until you take that leap. Until you do, you're just living your life as a pussy, because how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're afraid to take the leap and leave that career, to say that you're meant for better, that you're going to go live this amazing life, of course you're afraid to go say hi to that cute person in the coffee shop. It's all the same. You have no nuts. And taking that leap is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Once you do, you're in business. You'll figure everything out as you go. You think I have any idea what I'm doing? I had to figure out where to buy this. I had to figure out where to buy the camera that I'm doing it on, the light pad. No, of course not. But there's another amazing quote that if one advances confidently in the direction of his or her dreams and endeavors to live the life that which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Now, that was written by Henry David Thoreau or whatever. So it's a long time ago, a lot of fancy things. But it's like, if you just throw yourself at the world, I've found that the world welcomes you with open arms. And so again, I love this idea too. When I was thinking of private equity, it's like, plan for your death and work backwards. Who do you want to be? What stories do you want to be telling your grandkids around the fire pit? You know, there's this example, the founders of companies are these larger than life figures. They've got all these stories. They're exciting. They motivate people. People want to sit next to them at meetings or hear their stories. The fall in line partner who's just worked their way up, not very interesting. He hasn't taken any risks. He hasn't built anything. It's a snooze fest. You don't want a 2X life. You want this life that goes better than you could imagine. You know, your grandkids are falling asleep hearing your stories. So do something interesting. He took the path less traveled. He embarked on the Wild West. He shot from the hip and he learned as he went. And what did he have to say about his career? God, this is fun. When was the last time you thought that about your career? God, this is fun. I'm having the time of my life. Can you say that about your career? No. If you work for fun, money will come. If you set out working for money alone, fun is not likely to be part of the equation. If the excitement isn't there at the start, why will it come later? As I like to say, a shitty job only gets shittier. And what I like to, another amazing piece of career advice that, probably the best piece of career advice that I ever heard came from a billionaire investor, Ed Thorpe. He said that his sister-in-law told him, do what you love and the money will follow. And he said, that's partially true. Do what you love and the money may follow. And that was the idea that he built his billion-dollar career on. Do what you love with people you want to be around and do what excites you. And if the money does follow, great. If the money doesn't follow, great, because you actually did what you wanted with your limited time here on earth. And he has a banger line and he goes, so that was the advice that I followed. Do what you love and the money may follow. And it just so happened to follow for me. I made a couple $1 billion, but that's great. And then there's this other amazing quote from David Foster Wallace. And he said, the ultimate way you and I get lucky in life is if you make some money early in your life. You find out that it doesn't mean anything, which now sets you on your adventure of finding out what does mean something to you and living your life around that. And I'll tell you the story. I was very lucky to start my career in finance. We made a ton of money. My first bonus was 6 figures. When I was 25, I got a $200,000 bonus in one day. You think that's amazing. It makes you happy. It doesn't make you happy. I didn't even think I cracked a smile because I was miserable for the 364 days leading up to it. But money's not going to do anything for you. So what does do something for you? He talks about finding meaning in your life. He goes, I guess I imagine that someday it would just appear, that there would come a stage of life when the pieces of the puzzle would mysteriously resolve into something grander, something whole, something made sense. Except it doesn't happen like that. And I would add, That's because that's not how meaning works. Meaning isn't something you find or you create or you eat or you inject yourself with. There's no meaning peptide. It's something you create. You give things meaning because they mean something to you. So figure out what means something to you and unload the clip on that. He has obviously amazing passages about love, and this is really, really beautiful. This is what he wrote about leaving his wife behind. I believe there's another side. I wouldn't call it heaven, and I'm not making any guesses about what it's really like. But I do believe that souls are reunited there. So I'll wait for you at the end of the jetway. I'll chill champagne for the moment that you rejoin me. But there's no hurry. Love your life. Take your time. Take your time. That's crazy. And I remember I wrote in the inside of the book, I can't wait to meet the person who makes me feel like this. And it's funny because so many of us don't even know the names of the person that we will marry, that our souls will be rejoined with, that we will write something that beautiful about and to, because we feel that much love towards them. We don't even know their names yet. How exciting. You could meet them tomorrow. It really does just happen on a random Tuesday. And it's this treasure chest of life, this journey of love that makes life so fun and so exciting. And so be excited about that. On loss, he says, when does a child first begin to understand that things change and that people and places come and go? For me, it happened on moving day. He moved a bunch as a kid. I was doing something I'd never done before, closing off a chapter in my life, saying a real goodbye. Not see you later, but goodbye. Then he writes a pretty hard quote. At the time, I was going through a breakup, so this one hit. He goes, there are some people who you will have memories with for far longer than you will ever know them. It was my first hint that life takes back what it gives. But anyways, people of happy temperament find ways to be happy. So that actually solves pretty well because, I think if you keep going, you'll always find better days. But as I said, I first felt real loss when I was 25. It was my first heartbreak. I was lucky to have never moved as a kid, and my childhood best friends are still my best friends today. So that loss did sting. I realized something really important, that some people are just a chapter in your story. Some people, think about your life like a book. Some people are there the whole way, and some people are just there for chapters. And I think a mistake a lot of people make is when relationships end, they look back on chapters negatively. They try to color the person as a bad person, or, they tell themselves these stories to cope about it, and they try to suppress those memories. But it's like, enjoy the memories that you shared, because that chapter of your book, it should be, and hopefully was, better because that person was in it. So just enjoy the memories that you had, wish them well, and hope that they keep writing a great life. It doesn't matter for you because you're writing the most amazing story of your life. And there's so many amazing, beautiful chapters to come with people who are going to be in your book for the rest of the time. It wasn't meant to go that way. So just look back on it fondly. Your chapter is better for it, no matter what the loss is. That said, there's a different quote. It's not in this book, but understand that everyone you love will either die first or you will die first. That understanding is what taught me to love so hard, to never hold anything back, to say how you feel, to love like your heart is on fire, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Tell people how you feel about them, not only because they deserve to know, because you can't take those things with you. So these next two are going to be about being happy and about not worrying. So he talks about most people are not actually in their lives. They're just going through cruise control in life. They have this glazed over look in their life. They're not choosing to be happy. They're not in control of their emotions. They're not creating the life that they want. And what he said is, he played a very active role in his life, as you can imagine. It was something that he made me turn myself into. Happiness is a decision. And what he said is, I promised myself that I wouldn't have a bad day for the rest of my life. If someone was wasting my time, I'd excuse myself and walk away. If a situation bothered me or refused to get resolved, I'd shrug and move it on. And this is something that I really learned a lot about. People call me the happiest person they've ever met because I just choose to be happy. Things bother me all the time. One of my mentors, he actually reminds me a lot of this guy. He was one of the early employees at Microsoft. And he told me a big competitive advantage you can develop in your life is the speed at which you rebound from things. Things are going to piss you off. People are going to break your heart. Bosses are going to yell at you. Shit's going to happen. The speed at which you take back control of your life is a massive competitive advantage. And all I try to do is I'm just going to have a good day. Throughout that day, things will bother me or get me down, but I'm not going to let it impact the fact that all I'm trying to do is have a good day today. Because if you have enough good days, you'll have a great life. And then so he talked about how kids are always snoring. They see snow like pure joy. They want to lick it, A pile of leaves is a sacred altar that they jump into. They have this sense of wondering. Why do we lose that feeling when we grow up? That sense of wonder for the bulk of our lives. He talked about how he and his daughter went jet skiing and they were just blown away by everything, appreciating all of the beauty, laughing and having the best time ever. He said that excursion on the water taught me that each moment itself is a life, that life is renewed every time we're walloped by beauty, every time we're shaken up by gratitude and love. Think about that. Every moment is just this chance for wonder. And that's one of my favorite things about life is think of, an amazing way to judge your life is how many times you're like, wow, this is amazing. And I love this idea that the beauty that you see in the world is the beauty that you see in yourself. It's all in the eye of the beholder. And the more you can learn to appreciate and the more you can just understand that you control your own happiness, the happier you'll become. This is the flip side on problems. This is really important. He said, after my first surgery to remove cancerous tumors, I went to a cocktail party. I heard people talking about all their problems, their boss, money, investments that lost money, their busy schedules, all the problems that you complain about, that you worry about, relationships. And here I am thinking to myself, you think that's a problem? You're letting something like that make you unhappy? Buddy, you don't know what a problem is. Think about that, buddy. You don't know what a problem is. There's a great idea in life that if you put all your problems in a pile with the problems of all the people in the world, how quickly would you grab yours? Because there could be a lot worse problems. And there are real problems in life. And my heart goes out to anyone who's going through those. But whatever you are worried about right now probably is not one of them. If you are healthy and the people you love are healthy, I'd imagine you could figure about everything else out. So I love this. On a happier note, this is what I call on being a legend. As you can tell, he inspired me so much. I love this quote. He never quite grew up. Kids understood that and loved him for it. A touch football game, a water fight, all the kids wanted to be on Peter's team. My son used to say, boy, if I had an older brother, I'd want it to be him. He's just so cool. And I love that because this was really the prompt of what I'm now creating with my own business, the celebration of living life the right way. And it made me think because one of my biggest goals in life is to just be the dad that every kid wants to be on their little league team. Because they're an amazing father, they're successful, all the parents love them, they have an amazing wife, family, loving relationship. They just do things right. And so it's a certain type of dad, and shout out to my dad and shout out to all the other local legends from San Diego that really inspired me. The ones that would start the touch football games, the ones that were my little league coaches, the ones that were the father figures, because those people shape you a lot when you're a kid and growing up. So I love this from Peter too, because it's like, how do you do all that while building a career? Imagine the demands he had being a media executive. He said, I didn't want to miss precious moments of my kids growing up, the first lost tooth, the school play, by being on business trips. I didn't want to have kids get me to know me all over again after I'd been gone for weeks. I made a promise to myself that whatever else was going on, I'd be home every evening by 6. With only the rarest of exceptions, I held true to that. I didn't do business dinners. I didn't do business drinks. I drove our corporate pilots crazy. If I had a meeting in New York, I'd schedule it for 9 a.m. That meant leaving Denver at 4 a.m. in the morning. But it also meant I'd be home to hear about my kids' days, to throw a ball. Thinking about my dad doing that. Man, growing up's crazy. Or help them with my homework. I hope this was enough for my children. I know how happy it made me. Not only was, but is. I savor these family moments in the present tense. They're with me all the time. I smile about them often. So when I moved to Miami, I vowed to not miss anything. I didn't have corporate pilots on private jets, but I drove myself crazy with all the red-eye flights I was taking because I flew across the country to be there, no matter what. Friends' birthdays, engagement parties, or even just small moments. I was with my family a lot. I didn't want to miss anything. We are all growing up and getting older, and I do savor these moments. So, in a more fun sense, he said, this just goes to show what a cool dad he was and how cool it was and the impact he had on his kids. So I bought a big stretch fan and started taking my kids and their friends on what I'd call real world outings. They were like school field trips, but my version of them. I was never Mr. Barton. I was always just Peter. I wanted the kids to be able to relax, to let off steam, and if things got too rambunctious in the back of the van, I'd yell out, "Hey, what's rule number one?" And the kids would scream back, "No permanent injuries." And they'd settle down a little. I loved it. Every outing had a theme. Grease, where we looked closely at the realities of fast food. Garbage, where we followed the trail of household trash and recycled cars and concretes. One of my favorites was called luggage. There was a Samsonite factory in Denver. We went to it and we saw the bags being made and heard the honest clank of rivets. Then we went to a retail store and asked a lot of questions. Who decided how things would be displayed? How do you figure out how many to keep? What's the price you make? Think about that. What a cool dad. Something I'm going to do with my kids. No permanent injuries trips. I love that. On growing old, this is crazy. I now look back at my youth with a kind of detached affection, as if it were not my own life that I was recalling, but that of an old buddy with whom I drifted out of touch. There were episodes of joy and vigor and off the charts excitement that will never come again. And so this is a wild thought. Go look at younger pictures of yourself. Look at them. Look at your face. That's you. But it doesn't even look like you. It was so long ago that it doesn't even feel like that's you. It doesn't even feel like that's the life that you were living because it was so long ago. And the same thing, this is crazy. At my sister's wedding, we were looking through all my parents' wedding day photos. And my aunt said something I'll never forget. She was in this photo with my mom, and they both looked so beautiful. They're both so beautiful still today. And my aunt said, "Wow, it's hard to recall ever looking that young." And she was our age. And that past was so long ago, she doesn't even remember looking that young. And the next time you look in the mirror and think how you're fat, you're overweight, you don't look good enough, you need peptides or whatever, just remember that you're never going to be as beautiful as you are right now. And you're not even going to remember what that looks like in the future. So just enjoy the present. As he says, carpe diem, seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary. There's two last things. He talks about making mistakes. And this is really my takeaway, is one of the peaceful things about being near the end of life is I don't have to flinch from my mistakes along the way. Truthfully, my mistakes didn't seem to have mattered much. They were dumb, not evil, and dumb is a part of life. I think the better realization from this is one of my own secrets to happiness is I let myself make mistakes. I don't beat myself up over mistakes, but I make mistakes all the time. I vowed to myself that I'm going to be the person making mistakes at a rapid rate because that's how you learn and grow. I'm trying to do things I've never done to get to places I've never been. I'm going to make mistakes along the way, and I'm not going to beat myself up over it because your life is not determined by the mistakes you make. Your life is determined by the things that you get right. In the end, your mistakes don't have a say in how epic of a life you lived. What has a say in how epic of a life you lived is how many amazing things you got right. It doesn't matter the times you got rejected. It just matters the soulmate that was out of your wildest dreams. that you thought was out of your league, or all the investments that you lost money on, you only need to get one right. And he said, if you're going to make a mistake, do it with your foot on the accelerator. He said, if you're going to make a mistake, do it with your foot on the accelerator, thinking to yourself, my God, this is fun. And so I will leave you with this. He said, on trying. At the end of his life, this is what Peter Barton had to say. I've worked hard at my life. I'm proud of that. None of it came easily, and sometimes I pursued it with more insistence than grace. But that's who I've always been, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of that as well. If I had pushed a little less, relaxed a little more, I might have led a longer life. But who knows? That's my point about maybe what you're worried about or the anxiety or stress you're causing is going to lead to your own death. But I could not have had a life that better suited me, a life that was more my own. I'm very grateful. Think about that. He lived the life that he was meant to live, the life that he wanted to live. And I love that. But this is my favorite part. I think I've said that about every part, but he goes, there's just one final thing I want to say. Probably it's how everybody wants to be remembered, but that's okay. I've said from the start that I make no claim of being special. I'm just one more person dying, revisiting his life. I think my father would have said the same in the same words if he'd had the time. It's simply this. I really tried. I did my best. And I love that. The big takeaway from the book is to just try, to just throw yourself at the world, to empty the tank. There's a different quote that I love that says, when I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope I'd be able to look him in the eyes and say, I used everything you gave me. There's not one bit of potential left unused. And I think about that. My goal for myself is to just empty the tank. And that's my goal for you. Empty the tank. The book is not about dying. It's about living, actually living, loving hard, taking risks, building things, taking chances, hugging the kids, coaching the Little League teams, being present, making every moment count. Because this is all you get. Like everyone before you and like everyone after you, at some point, you will take your last breath. And this will have been your life. I don't know where we go, but we don't get another chance in this body. This isn't your practice life. This is the only chance you get. And so just really try. Just do your best. And I hope you just live the most incredible life. And I hope this helped you live. I hope it helped you in your life. I would love to hear all the favorite things that you learned and the takeaways, and just go give it your best and empty your tank and make Peter proud. It's certainly what I'm trying to do. So thank you, Peter.